Good morning. This is Faith in Our Hometown, brought to you as a community service and sponsored by Mercy Hospital, Joplin. And now, here's your host, Father Jay Friedel.
Good morning. I hope your Sunday morning is glorious. Mine is going to start out with a great conversation and a half an hour spent with you this morning. So it is good to be with you. Thank you for again giving up part of your Sunday morning to join us. I'm always amazed when I run into some of you at the grocery store or in the doctor's office or wherever I happen to be, and somebody said, "You sound like Father Jay." And I said, well, there's a good reason for that, because I am, okay? But it is good to be with you this morning. This morning, I really have to tell you, I laughed a few weeks ago because somebody said to me, you've had all these other social service agencies on. Why haven't you had Catholic Charities on? And I was like, we've never had Catholic Charities on. Okay, well, then I guess it's time to have Catholic Charities on. So that's my guest. And my guest this morning is going to be the chair of the board of Catholic Charities of Southern Missouri, Renee Motazedi. And we are going to have a little conversation about the work that Catholic Charities of Southern Missouri does, not just here in our own area, but across Southern Missouri. So grab your cup of coffee, settle in, and we're going to be right back after this Mercy Minute. Don't go away.
Breast density is when you have more fibrous tissue and glandular tissue in your breast than fat. And so we are hearing more about dense breasts because, number one, it's a law that we tell women that they have dense breasts. We've known about dense breasts in the medical community for many years. But that's the difference. There are some women who are have very fatty replaced breast, and there are some women who have very dense breast, meaning they have more fibroglandular tissue in that breast and less fat, therefore making it a little fuzzy on mammograms. So women with dense breasts have a modestly increased risk for breast cancer. However, it's not substantially increased. We have to just be more vigilant.
Well, again, thanks for joining us for another Sunday morning of Faith in Our Hometown. My guest this morning, Renee Motazedi. Renee is the chair. She actually lives here in Joplin, but she is the chair of Catholic Charities of Southern Missouri. Mm-hmm. And so, Renee, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll talk a little bit about Catholic Charities.
I'm a lifelong Catholic, and I'm a social worker, and I currently work for the Catholic schools now. I'm married, have 3 children.
Grew up in beautiful Carthage,
grew up in Carthage, Missouri, and always have wanted to help people and make their lives better in some way, in any way I can. And Catholic Charities asked me to serve on their board of directors 3 years ago, and then I went up to be the president, and it's been a wonderful learning experience.
Eye-opening, all the stuff that you get done across the bottom part of the state, isn't it?
Yes. It's been a wonderful experience. So.
Yeah. Well, our viewers may not know this, but it was so interesting, and it was almost serendipitous the way these things happen. It was very weird. But we had just announced the formation and the founding of Catholic Charities here in Southern Missouri the week before the tornado. And so we went from being a fledgling organization to just getting catapulted into doing all kinds of things that who knows how many years it would have taken us to get into doing some of those things if the necessity had not been borne by the need.
Right. At the time of the tornado, Catholic Charities of Southern Missouri had 2 employees that served the entire southern part of Missouri, and now we have over 100 employees serving 39 counties in southern Missouri, the southernmost counties. Interesting, 10 of those counties are the poorest in Missouri. So
all 10 of them are right here in Southern Missouri.
They are. And so we have our work cut out for us every day. But the amazing thing is everything that they do. Most interesting is in Joplin, a couple of years ago, they started a job training program to help people that may be otherwise unemployable, get on their feet and learn a trade so that they can have, their life can blossom too. Yeah. And that has been a really big thing for Joplin.
What, three groups
We
now?
did, just recently, just in the last couple of months. So that's something to be proud of, that we're helping folks
So
get
in
on their
that
feet.
program, what these folks do is they'll apply, and then we find out, again, kind of need-based and all those kinds of things. But if they've been underemployed or unemployed, they can go through this training program with regular contractors and people who work in the construction industry.
Right.
And then because of that, when they get finished, they've got skills. And so they become much more employable by many of our construction folks here in the greater Joplin area.
It changes their lives.
Yeah, which is wonderful. And again, that's what so many of our social service agencies are really all about. I mean, they're not just. I mean, none of us are really looking to just say, oh, here's here's a handout, here's something. Most people really aren't looking for that anyway. Most people are just looking for that hand up, that we can make the changes and help them make the changes in their lives that they can then go on to succeed. Right. And I think that's one of the wonderful things about this program. I never forget, a couple of years ago when somebody said, what do you all think about this? And I said, I think it'd be fabulous because what it'll do is it'll help change, the way people feel about themselves when they go into an interview. They can say, hey, look, I went through this program. I've got skills, because let's face it, our builders in the area want people who do have skills.
Right. And they have references.
And references, yeah, there you go.
But I mean, that's somebody can, basically, say that they can do the job, that they can, vouch for them. And, I like to say Catholic Charities teaches a man to fish. They don't just give him the fish. Right. And, they work very hard at homeless prevention across the diocese.
That's another one of the big programs that we do is homelessness prevention. So,
yes.
So somebody who loses a job or gets sick and, or whatever, suddenly is, unemployed for a period of time. Many run the risk of becoming homeless. So how does Catholic Charities at that point in time step in and do some of that?
They provide resources, linkage to resources for them to either, and funds if necessary, there's limited funding available. They do provide some things like that just to assist them until they can get through that valley in their life. If they need affordable housing, they can link them to those resources. They work to find them a car that'll, get them to job interviews and things like that. It's and that's case management across the southern part of Missouri. I mean, they do that everywhere. So I mean, there's just a lot of different ways. And also too. Lifehouse in Springfield, which is a maternity home, that is for pregnant women that are homeless. And they teach them to care for their baby and themselves and hold them accountable in the sense that they have to get a job, they have to save their money. And as long as they do those things and go through the steps that they require, that can change their life too.
Yeah. And that's one of those things, because it's a little bit out of our area. You don't hear about it as much in Joplin itself.
But they serve Joplin.
But we do serve Joplin. I mean, and of course, those of us who have worked with Catholic Charities know that if we wind up with someone who's in that criteria, I know that Life Choices, for example, who does a lot of our crisis pregnancy work, have referred people, because we know it's a resource and we know it's available. So if we find someone who fits the criterion for needing those kinds of services, they can hook them up and make sure that they're receiving the support that they need in order to make the necessary changes in their lives to do those things. And again, some of those, I mean, when we get invited to a lot of dinners because to celebrate this or to raise funds or to do whatever, and you go and you hear some of the stories about some of the women who, had just gotten off of, drug usage or just had been in a horrible, abusive relationship or any of those things that they basically had to, get out of those situations, turn life around, and Lifehouse was there to actually, give them that hand to say, okay, we're going to teach you now how to plan and how to save and how to learn and how to take care of your family and how to juggle those schedules, and and if we can teach you how to do all that stuff and we can help you in these increments, all right, now you've saved enough, now your next plan is now you've saved your deposit and all the stuff that you're going to need in order to get into an apartment. Okay, now here's where you need to go spend that money. We'll get you in there, and we'll still help you while you're trying to juggle it and help you to figure out how you're going to go about life and succeed. But the whole thing is, it's all about helping them to succeed. And in so many instances, especially in the instances of the women at Lifehouse as well, that will help you then to carry your baby to term, and we'll make sure that you don't have to choose any other options that may not appeal to you.
Right.
Like terminating that pregnancy, like having an abortion, like doing whatever. We can help you to make that choice to still have your baby, but still, move forward in a way that you're going to be able to have some real choices down the road in life, which I love. Again, wonderful success stories, in terms of some of those things. In terms of Catholic Charities, that and all the other programs we're talking about, while I'm thinking about it, I want to make sure we get the phone number up real quick. But if anybody would, thinks that they might apply for these programs or any of the other ones we're talking about, they can certainly call the Catholic Charities office, and that number here in Springfield, or Joplin, I'm sorry. Here we talk about Springfield, all of a sudden my mouth starts going there. But our Joplin office is 417-624-3790. 417-624-3790 is the Joplin office. I know that I rely on them a lot because, if somebody will come in and say, I've got this issue, I got that problem, or if I don't get this done, I'm going to be out on the street or whatever, and I'm just like, okay, I can't necessarily help you here, but I will send you down to talk to the caseworkers at Catholic Charities, and we'll see whether or not we can't get you, connected with one of the programs that might be able to help. How many folks, give us an idea of the size of the Joplin office.
I'm not sure. I would say maybe 5 or 6 employees as far as just with case management. And then, of course, they've got the construction management and, as far as the job training goes. And I do know some of
each one of our offices, and we've got offices certainly here in Joplin. We got some in Cape Girardeau, some in Van Buren, some in Poplar Bluff, Springfield. And Poplar Bluff.
I believe Poplar Bluff and.
So we're pretty much spread.
Yes,
we're spread across southern Missouri, which is why it's, CC, SOMO, Catholic Charities Southern Missouri.
Which is also 25,000 square miles.
Yeah, 25,000 square miles and 39 counties.
39 counties.
39, with the 10 poorest counties in the state of Missouri.
Right. Well,
I have to laugh. Our bishop, he now has got this little spiel down. He goes, and he said, when I visit all that, because he doesn't round up to anything, he gives you the exact square miles. He gives you the exact number of counties. He gives you the exact number of churches we've got and all those things. And again, Catholic Charities is just an outgrowth of saying, how do we do some of the social work in every area where we find ourselves? And how do we apply ourselves to trying to meet some of those needs, those specific needs in some of those areas? Again, my guest this morning, Renee Motazedi, who is the chairman of the board, the chairwoman of the board, or the chair of the board, however you want to say that, of Catholic Charities of Southern Missouri. And we've been talking a little bit about the work of Catholic Charities across the southern third of our state and here in the Joplin area. So we're going to be right back after this Mercy Minute, we don't have a Mercy Minute now. We're just going to have a real quick break. So get a quick coffee break and come on back because we'll be right back.
You're watching Faith in Our Hometown on KSN TV, brought to you as a community service of Mercy Hospital, Joplin.
Okay, I guess maybe if you're still in the kitchen, we're going to talk a little louder. so that you can still hear us from there while you're filling up that cup of coffee or whatever you're going to do. But again, my guest this morning, Renee Motazedi. Renee lives here in Joplin, but she is for the agency that covers these 29 southernmost counties in the southern third of the state of Missouri. And the Catholic Church tries to maintain a presence in those areas. And of course, we're spending a little bit more time talking about some of the fun things that happen in the Joplin office. Because like, for example, the job training thing really only happens out of here because that was one of the most, that was one of the things we figured we needed the most in the area. When we did, because they're continually assessing needs all over the southern third of the state and saying, well, what do folks need? And that was one of the things that came up here, which is why we're blessed with that program here in Joplin. There's a few other programs that operate out of other places that we don't necessarily have all the access to, but there's a few that most of the larger ones we all do together and across the board. For the state. We do some work with veterans.
We do, yes, homeless veterans. We get them into housing and connect them to resources. And that's made a big difference too for a lot of people that, couldn't otherwise do it on their own just because they didn't have that linkage. But
well, and again, and everybody says, well, how can a veteran become homeless? How can a veteran not know what already, that the government will do for them or whatever? But, sometimes people get stuck.
Well, and some of them, they're not recent veterans. I mean, some are Vietnam veterans.
Yeah.
So, it's great that we have grant funding that assists us with that program. So.
And again, that's just trying to make those links and trying to help people, who may be stuck in a certain spot or maybe really struggling. If we can get them into case management and help them. Get back on their feet and do some of those kinds of things. I know that we've had, some of our, that wound up being some of our street people. I know that, suddenly we found out, down the road, it's just like, oh my gosh, we've actually got a program that might be able to help you. And so suddenly you make the connections and now, said person is no longer living in the woods, but has got a roof over his head and is making it all work and doing those things. But again, if we had not had, and some of our parishioners in terms of talking to these folks that would come to church and try to figure out how we're going to help, if we hadn't known and found out some of those other pieces, and they hadn't had Catholic Charities to send them to, they might still be living in the woods. So again, those are the beauty of some of those untold stories that we have. What other programs?
Well, I think really, as far as Joplin is concerned, the thing that probably sticks out in my mind the most is disaster recovery.
Oh, well, yeah, we certainly got good at it, didn't we?
That put them on the map, in this area. But they do it across the southern part of the diocese, and we've got counties on the Mississippi.
Well, we've for example. When we had the flooding in Carthage a few years ago. Again, Catholic Charities was able to step in and do their thing because, again, we can respond in a moment of disaster. One of the things that a lot of people don't understand is that when we had all of our disaster stuff, people from Catholic Charities offices all over the United States came and helped us. So you'd have case managers come in from Texas, and I'm just thinking about some of the people that I still see when we go down to Texas with our students to do other things. Who would work in the Brownsville, office, and they were up here, and we certainly received assistance from Kansas City, St. Louis, Jefferson City, which are the other dioceses here in Missouri. But there's that mutual assistance that when those things happen, they'll get release time to go from working in our own home office to doing disaster recovery in another place.
And one of our case managers actually just returned from Florida, from being deployed down there to help with their disaster. So I think that
I'm sure they're going to be sending folks out to California.
Yes, probably
because
so.
Anywhere that natural disasters break out, Catholic Charities is one of the Catholic Church's arms. That reaches out to those folks to get lives back online.
Well, and they're one of the leading agencies in the country for disaster recovery, just because of the model that they use. Catholic Charities USA is a huge piece of that, and that they deploy those different case managers wherever they need to go. which we benefited from that.
Sure we did,
and
because we had just
folks had on-the-job training here.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. And our folks got really good
They
at
did.
disaster recovery because of that.
They did, yeah.
So we got a good reputation around the country. It's just like, oh, those people from Joplin kind of know what they're doing. Sad, but true.
Yeah.
In terms of that disaster recovery, I mean, that again, just looking back, I mean, that was to help, a lot of people who just didn't, again, know where to go, didn't know who to talk to, didn't know how to unlock the system, didn't know what was available to them. And that's what those case managers do in that regard is they will sit with folks and say, okay, now what are your resources? And again, we're still, I think of some of the folks we slowly helped to get back to maybe where they were about the time of the tornado. Some of the folks that were uninsured or underinsured, or
they've rebuilt homes,
rebuilt homes,
dozens
or
of
those
homes,
kinds of things.
and even repaired a lot.
Well, and again, that's part of the beauty of the construction,
Right.
Apprenticeship program is that then we can couple up those folks who need some of those repairs with some of the people that are learning how to do some of those skills. And so as a result, we've got on-the-job training along with people who need and could not otherwise afford to fix the roof that's been leaking, or the porch that was caved in, or the windows that needed to be replaced, or some of those things to just help people with some of the basic living necessities that they've struggled to fix or to make some headway on in a long time. Again, it's kind of like that hand up that we were talking about earlier.
Exactly.
Exactly.
And really, disasters, they're not picky. I mean, they're going to. And I think a lot of people found themselves in a situation that they never dreamed they'd be in. They lived their lives, they went day to day, they worked, they did what they needed to do. But as a lot of us know, some people's homes were destroyed, and so was their workplace. And those folks, I think, really needed that because they didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
They didn't know.
Yeah, and again, it just takes somebody who's worked in those areas before that knows, okay, here are your basic steps. Here's your stuff. You need to go do these 5 things, and then come on back and see us, next week after you've got these things done, so that we can help you with the next steps. And that's part of what again we do and continue to do. The Catholic Church is, for those of you that don't understand us, we're like the herd, okay? And so because of that, there are any diocese that has, any territory that has its own Catholic Charities office. Now, they operate separate from the diocese, although they're certainly still connected to the church, has one of these Catholic Charities offices. So there is one in Jefferson City, there is one in Springfield, there is one in, Springfield, Cape Girardeau is all of us. Which is southern Missouri, but there is one in St. Louis, and so because of that, those offices, again, do mutual aid, and we can respond wherever this stuff breaks out in the United States because of the infrastructure and the network that exists. We're part of Catholic Charities USA, which again, in terms of charities, gets great ratings because the bulk of every dollar that's given goes, what is it, 97%? Is that, do I have my numbers right?
Well, I don't know the exact number, but, we have a lot of grant funding that funds programming.
Right.
So, any money that is given truly stays in
those programs.
Well,
right?
It does, but even unrestricted donations, anybody that wants to write a check as far as a donation to Catholic Charities, that's unrestricted. That money, that helps us to fill in those gaps.
Sure.
To where we wouldn't normally have the funds to do so.
And I know that, for example, Catholic Charities of Southern Missouri does fundraise, and it seems strange to fundraise from yourself, but like, for example, we fundraise in our own backyard every year because we go to all the Catholics in the diocese and we say, okay, we got all this work that needs to be done. Can you help us to fund that? And again, some of those donations come in from there, but from other folks. And again, if any of you want to make a generous donation to Catholic Charities, again, that number 417-624-3790. I'm usually not this brazen, in terms, but I figure I do it for everybody else. Why not do it for us too? So again, 417-624-3790. And if you've got an interest, if you'd like to volunteer, if you've got time, if you've got skills, whatever you'd like to do, call and talk to the folks at Catholic Charities and see whether or not they might have a
volunteer
position
training
for you. Volunteer training and how to go out and do some of those things. We've been recently talking about with our disaster coordinator who works for Catholic Charities, because again, we have somebody who's specifically at Catholic Charities to try to help all of us be more prepared for the next disaster. And we were talking about that the other day, and I said, okay, the last time we were a hospital and a nursing home and a homeless shelter, and we had so many different jobs, and I said, all right, this time around, what I want an answer. I want to know, based on the Coalition for Disaster, which exists of all the different social service agencies, all the people who help in this area, what do you need us to do? And so, again, those are things that I think churches and places like that need to be involved in that conversation at that level, because if we break out again, I want the answer that says, okay, my job is to do this, and we're going to be about doing that. Rather than having to, then we're going to know we'll be able to respond faster and better than we were the last time, because we're going to know what our job is. And there, if somebody helps us with that, we can be more prepared to do whatever we need to do. So, what do you, as the chair of the board of Catholic Charities, what can our viewers maybe do to listen, to help you all?
Definitely keep us in your prayers.
That's good. See, you can't wait for the priest to say that. You go ahead and say that. Good. Keep us in your prayers. It's a good thing.
Because of all the good work that the Catholic Charities does for so many cross sections of people, there's so many good things that needs that reinforcement of prayer. But even dollars make a big difference, and so there's just just
however you can help.
Sure.
We're going to be right back after this Mercy Minute. Don't go away.
In Ireland, the first Sisters of Mercy were called the Walking Sisters because every day they went out in search of women and children who needed healing or help. Mercy continues to answer the same call, dedicated to the health of every woman who comes to us for care. Mercy, in every era, your life is our life's work. Learn why we serve at mercy.net/legacy. Changes the world and each of us. The Sisters of Mercy devoted themselves to offering exceptional maternity and delivery care, training generations of nurses to do the same. Mercy continues to answer the same call, to not only care for your baby, but to cherish them too. Mercy, in every era, your life is our life's work. Learn why we serve at mercy.net/legacy.
One of the things that has always impressed me about my 12 years living here in the greater Joplin area is that we care. And I love that about our community. We figure out how we need to care for each other, and then in so many ways, with so many institutions, with so many agencies, we reach out and try to fix some of what we can. One of those organizations I'm very proud to say is Catholic Charities of Southern Missouri. I'm blessed to be connected with it, and I don't know why I haven't had somebody on previously to talk about the good work that we do, but we do plenty of work, and not just us, but anybody. Again, if you want to get in touch with us, want to volunteer time, money, any of those kinds of things, 624-3790, or you can also go to the website, which is www.ccsomo, Catholic Charities Southern Missouri.org. Let's continue to figure out how to care for each other in the greater Joplin area. Let's continue to figure out how to care and to help each other. It's part of who we are. Let's not forget that. I hope you have a blessed Sunday. Join us next week for Faith in Our Hometown.
Thanks for watching. Faith in Our Hometown can be seen Sunday mornings at 6:30 and 9 a.m. on KSN. Brought to you as a community service and sponsored by Mercy Hospital, Joplin.